Thank you very much. I always find it very moving and very humbling when someone can actually give you a very personal touch with an introduction. So I thank you very much for that. Finding courage to be an ally in the fight for rights. When I think about the work that I've done over the years, and people have called me fearless, the reality is I'm not fearless. I experience a lot of fear, past and present, but I find the courage to go beyond the fear that I may be feeling in the moment. And so today, I want to talk a little bit about that. You know, living with the intersection of oppression. So I personally live with race, gender, oppression, but I also know about oppression based on age, based on ability, based on socioeconomic class, based on gender identity, sexual orientation, you know, all of those isms. And then if you go to the second layer, oppression based on family status, citizenship status, all of those things impact on the lives of people every single day. And when we think about oppression, one of the things I think that really helps us and to help us move forward is actually the role of allies. And allies help us in that whole movement. I have spent a lot of time, and especially in the early days of my career, I've spent a lot of time focusing on oppression, focusing on my race and gender oppression, race, gender, and class oppression, as if that was all of who I am, as if that was all that I embodied. I really started my work as a social activist, as an anti-racist person, focused there. And then one day, an ally that I admired a great deal talked to me about my privilege. And I was in a state of shock, a state of denial, and probably a little bit of anger. I mean, who gave this person permission to tell me that I had privilege? And then he started to tell me about the privilege I held. At the time, I was a doctoral student at the University of Sheffield in England. I had a job waiting for me back here at Dalhousie. I had a class position as a Canadian citizen. I could travel anywhere I wanted to in the world. As a heterosexual female, I had heterosexist privilege. As what I called a temporarily able-bodied person, I was physically able to do all of the things I wanted to do, mentally able to do all of the things that I wanted to do. I was living with incredible privilege. And if I wasn't owning the privilege, you can rest assured that I certainly wasn't using it, and not using it in a way that could help move others along. That was a transformative moment for me personally, and I think it also transformed my politics, transformed my work, transformed my mission as a social justice advocate. And it led me to this work, what I call the AAA paradigm, a social justice approach to challenging oppression. So one of the things that I realized that we need these AAAs, these 3 A's, awareness. If we're not aware of the oppression that's around us, that we witness, that we even experience. Harriet Tubman was asked once, how many slaves did you free? And I think she said something to the effect, I freed 1,000, but I could have freed 1,000 more if they'd known they were enslaved. So building awareness, both for those who live with oppression and also for those who witness it. That awareness is key to moving along, key to social change. And the next step then is really analysis. If we don't develop an analysis of those issues, then we're bound to make mistakes. We're bound to do missteps. And once you have a clear, in-depth, critical analysis, then the third step is action. Now, I've been that person who's gone from awareness to action. You become aware of something and you think, you know, this is not right, I'm going to do something about it. And you're bound to make mistakes, and I've made those mistakes. And so getting to that place of action after you've done the analysis. And so sometimes it takes a bit more time. Sometimes it takes more time than perhaps you think you have. But it's so important to take the time to go through the AAA. If I'm building on that work, I would add a fourth A now. And that's the A for allies. I believe that allies are so significant to this journey of social justice. Allies help us. Allies help those who are marginalized move forward. And one of my students shared with me from social media, a woman named Kayla Reed wrote an acronym about an ally. And I've added and built on that. So she says A for awareness. Being aware of what's required. So A for awareness. L, learn and listen. Learn and listen. Learn and listen from the oppressed. So allies, really, you don't need to take you don't have to be in the front row. You don't need a front row seat to be an ally. You don't need a front row seat to someone else's oppression. So listen and learn. So allies need to listen and learn. The second L, leverage your privilege. And I add to that, leverage your privilege and your power. So as I was saying earlier, I wasn't leveraging my privilege if I wasn't even acknowledging that I had privilege. And so it's so important, no matter where we are, no matter what social location we occupy, what space we occupy, if we're in a place where we have some privilege and we have some power, it's what we do with it. We don't have to apologize for the privilege that we hold. We don't have to apologize for being in positions of power. It's what we do with it that really matters. That's where the accountability comes in. And then why? Yield the floor. You know, sometimes when allies are working with people who are marginalized and when people empower themselves, and sometimes there's a lot of anger, and people can be triggered by that. They can find themselves in a space of discomfort around people's anger. There's a lot of social injustice that ought to make us angry. And we need to be willing to just sit and listen and learn. And sometimes we need to listen and learn through that place of anger and know that that's all right. And that is where courage comes in. It takes a lot of courage to be an ally. It takes a lot of courage to be willing to just sit and listen. It takes a lot of courage to learn from the oppressed, from the marginalized. It takes a lot of courage to take a stand and fight for rights at a time when maybe you're alone. Maybe you're the only person speaking this truth. But it takes a lot of courage to do that, but I think you need to do it. And when we're doing it, we need to be able to work with allies. We need to pull our allies in to help us in that fight for rights. It takes courage to be a change leader. If you think about it, maybe those of you who are here who are already in leadership positions, if you want to change things, it takes courage to change things. It takes so much courage. So I want to invite you to find the places and the spaces and the people. Find the things that give you courage. Find the things that inspire you. You know, one of the things that really inspires me is actually my spirituality. Spirituality gives me courage. Faith over fear. And actually, I was in church this morning. I attend East Preston United Baptist Church with Pastor Laquita Porter. And she's had a whole series since the beginning of January on faith. And one of the key messages is faith over fear. And that's a message I carry with me every single day. Using that faith to overcome the fear that I feel, to be a change leader. I believe that we all need to lead the change that you want to see in this world. You have to lead the change you want to see, not wait for someone else to do it. Not wait for someone else to stand up and be the change leader. You witness something. You become aware of something. You analyze something. Lead the change that you want to see. And the final word on this, things change when we do something. When we don't do anything, we can be guaranteed that things will continue as they are. And if you're unhappy with something that's happening in your world, remember that things will change when you do something about it. Thank you. So this past December, I attended the 30th anniversary of the North End Parent Resource Center. And one of the people that was there was Canada's parliamentary poet laureate, Dr. George Eliot Clark. And he was reading some of his poems. And I said to him, I said, you know, I'd like to ask you to write a poem about Viola Desmond that I want to read in the Senate. And he did. And I read that poem on Wednesday, International Women's Day, and I deliberately did not want to do it during Black History Month. Yes, she's an African Nova Scotian. She's also a woman, so it's that intersectionality piece. And she is certainly one of the people that has and continues to inspire me. So I've asked the organizers if I could read that poem and share that with you here today. And the title, On Political Economy, or The Ballad of Viola Desmond. It's impossible proof the $10 bill supporting her face demonstrates crime pays. But first, the heroine has to holler. She has to be jailed because she didn't pay the penny tax required to sit where Caucasians folks sit in that segregated cinema. Blacks in 1946 were deemed unfit to share the same seating at the Roseland Theatre in New Glasgow, and were told, some rows are whites only. Who could withstand? Voila! Viola, worth her weight in gold. Desmond was a beautician, but her change wasn't cosmetic. She wouldn't give 2 cents to back racism. That was strange. It wasn't how most coloreds had to live. So Nova Scotia swiftly saw her jailed, tried her, declared her guilt, not for breaking racist rules, but only because she failed to pay the province the 1 cent the province was taking to support whites only rules aplenty, as if New Scotland was South Africa. Viola, convicted, was fined $20. That's her beauty spot, I tell you. Her 2 cents made a real difference, made change begin to happen. 9 years before Rosa Parks sparked the Civil Rights Crusade stateside, a century past Civil War. As an entrepreneur, she sought value and profit in beauty, Sis Desmond did. But she strove for justice because it's true. Beauty turns ugly where justice is hid. Her bill is disappointingly smooth, eh? One can't feel her scars, scrapes, and scabs that she suffered to bring about a better day, whose dawn would usher in equality. Still, she's the first Canuck femme and person of color to see her face integrate Canadian currency. Partisan of justice, ponder her interest rate. From 2 cents to $10, an increase of 50,000%. Also note her royal pardon. Miracles don't cease. Royal Mint is Viola Desmond now. Find the courage to be an ally in the fight for rights in this age of uncertainty. Thank you.